last weekend, the head of Pakistan's army proclaimed, don't worry, he had broken the back of terrorism, while he stood 1 mile away from Osama bin Laden's bedroom. Our great ally. Joining us now live from Benghazi in Libya is NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel. Richard, thanks very much for joining us. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, of course, and it's a very windy evening, so you'll excuse the wind, but it is an incredible development that has been happening. And I think you're right. It has always been about Pakistan, and yet U.S. troops went and fought in Iraq, and that, in the end of the day, had nothing to do with bringing Osama bin Laden to justice.
Richard, what do you think happens next with Pakistan? People are describing Pakistan as having explaining to do, as being embarrassed, as having finally been called out for the lies they have perhaps knowingly been telling all of these years about Osama bin Laden. We can't look into a crystal ball about what happens next, but based on your understanding of the players here, what do you think happens next between us and that country?
Well, I think in the short term, the U.S. military wants to maintain as civil as relations as possible with Pakistan. Of course, Osama bin Laden is now dead, but his number two, Ayman al-Zawahiri, is not. 3, 4, 5. And the United States sees an incredible amount of information in that compound where Osama bin Laden was living, including hard drives, computers, and now they're going to want to exploit all that information. So assuming that many of these individuals are still in Pakistan for the next several months at least, I think you're going to want to see the U.S. trying to tread very lightly on that relationship. Whether they will be able to stop what I expect will be a very public uproar from the American people against Pakistan will be a different situation.
Richard, what do you think the significance is of the geography of where bin Laden was found in this garrison city, Abbottabad, not far outside Pakistan's capital? What does that tell you about, I mean, not just potential Pakistani complicity here, but also what does that tell you about al-Qaeda?
Well, I think it reveals a great deal. And the fact that they didn't tell Pakistan that this operation was coming also speaks volumes about their own confidence in the ally Pakistan, an ally that has received about $18 billion from the United States over the last decade as well. And as you said, it's a garrison town. Imagine if the tables were turned the other way and there was an international terrorist wanted for the deaths of 3,000 citizens from, let's say, another country. It doesn't have to be named. And that terrorist was living in West Point, in the town of West Point, in the biggest house in the town, a few miles down from the Chow Hall. And suddenly that terrorist was discovered. How would the United States say, well, we really didn't know where he was living in a giant compound just down the street from the Chow Hall in West Point?
Richard, you and I have talked before about post 9/11 al-Qaeda being sort of a franchise operation, something that doesn't need central control in order to continue to be deadly. But does it hurt even al-Qaeda's franchise power, their capacity to inspire terrorism, to have bin Laden dead and dead in this way?
Yeah, it does. If you're a franchise and they've suddenly killed your symbol, it hurts the value of the brand. If the symbol of the franchise is Osama bin Laden, it has always been Osama bin Laden, then the franchise itself is less valuable. Why do people buy franchises like big hamburger chains or ice cream stores? It's because there is a brand name, and that brand of al-Qaeda has shown that it is not invincible, that Osama bin Laden can't just live with impunity, popping up like a jack-in-the-box every once in a while and poking fun of the United States and seeming to have this endless stream of good luck. Now that luck has run out, and I think that will certainly have an impact. These franchises will go on, but they might not be as attractive or as flourishing as they were over the last several years.
Richard, there's been a lot of discussion today about the U.S. decision to bury bin Laden at sea. The U.S. saying that is something that is allowed in Islamic tradition. Some Islamic religious figures disputing that characterization. How important is the treatment of his body, do you think? Obviously, the idea is to try to not make him a martyr against a lot of pressure from his side to make him one.
Yeah, I mean, to be perfectly frank, it's not common at all to bury people at sea. I mean, I've lived in this region for 15 years. I can't think of a single incident. I don't know anyone whose parents have been buried at sea. It just... Maybe it's Islamically permissible if they were shipping Muslims who died on a ship 500 years ago and they didn't want to keep the body on the ship. Sure, I can see how that would be acceptable under Islamic law, but it's certainly not a common practice. It's very important because you don't want to create more of a martyr of Osama bin Laden. You don't want to enhance his image that much further. I think the U.S. probably did this. They dropped him off at sea because I can't imagine too many countries would want to take the body, and they didn't want to create a shrine. They didn't want a place where people could go and have a hero worship or even effectively a type of sainthood. But it is very bizarre. I mean, that is one of the most bizarre aspects of all of this, that they take the body after they do all the identification, and then they wrap it up and slide it off into the ocean. That seems it's one of the weirdest parts of this entire story, frankly.
Speaking of weird, I'm thinking about the fact that we're talking about what happened to bin Laden's body being dropped off the side of the USS Carl Vinson. You're standing on a balcony in Benghazi with the wind making your hair look ridiculous.
A windy balcony.
Your windy balcony. They're covering this civil war, this unimaginable civil war of the Libyan people.
Wait till I see yours.
Yeah, I know. This Libyan people rising up against Gaddafi of all people. Mubarak is gone. Ben Ali is gone in Tunisia. There's an uprising underway in Yemen. There's an uprising of a sort underway in Syria. Bin Laden is dead. Can you believe how much the Muslim world has changed in the past 6 months?
It has been an incredibly tumultuous period, almost as transformative as it is windy here. But what's been amazing is that the news coverage today, for example, was about even. It wasn't wall-to-wall coverage about Osama bin Laden. It was in the beginning, in the first day, in the early hours. But as the day grew on, people started talking on Al Jazeera, Al Arabiya, and the local satellite channels. These are the main Arabic language channels about Osama bin Laden. And then they got right back to what are the new core issues here. The revolution in Egypt, the revolution in Tunisia, the uprising in Syria, the war here in Libya. People think that is what is going to change this region and truly transform it. There was almost a sense that bin Laden was the man of the past decade, and a lot of people in the Middle East want to put him behind them. Bin Laden was an embarrassment to the Middle East. Nobody likes to be profiled. No one likes to be considered a terrorist simply because they grow their beard or because they go and pray in a mosque. And I think there was a great sense of relief, a feeling of good riddance that this disgrace was finally dead, no longer associated with the region. And people wanted to focus on what really will matter for the future of this region going forward for the next 10 years, and that is these uprisings.
Richard Engel, NBC News chief foreign correspondent, braving the wind and a lot else in Benghazi in Libya tonight. Richard, thank you so much for staying up till the middle of the night again to talk with us.